Hello, I am Juan-Juan, your system instructor, and today we will be talking about one of my favorite statistical tools, the t-test. The t-test is used to calculate significant difference between two groups or two samples. And by the way, I love the letter T and vitamin T.
Juan-Juan, before we start, can I ask you a question?
Sí.
What is vitamin T?
Oh, Mimi, the vitamin T is one of the most important elements of the Mexican food.
Can you give us some examples of vitamin T, Juan-Juan?
Absolutely. Some of the foods that are rich in vitamin T include tacos, tamales, tostadas, tinga, tlacoyos, tepache, tequila, taquitos, tortas,
Juan.
teleras, tortas ahogadas, tortillas, tocino, tacos al pastor, tamarindos, totopos con salsa, tejocotes, tomatillos, tres leches, tripas. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mimi. Let's talk about the t-test. Welcome back. In this video, we will discuss how to perform the t-test using Minitab and Excel. But before that, we need to cover some basic concepts. The t-test is a statistical test used to determine if the difference between two groups is statistically significant or not. The t-test is also known as the student's t-test, and it was developed by William Gossett, who first published it in 1908 under the assumed name of a student, and that's why it's called the student's t-test. There are three different kinds of tests: the one sample test, the independent sample t-test, and the pair sample t-test. In this video, we will discuss the independent samples t-test, which is the most common use in manufacturing and can be used, for example, to determine if two batches of raw material are statistically similar or not.
Juan-Juan, but what exactly is a t-test?
Oh, great question, Mimi. In simple terms, a t-test is a technique to find a p-value, a probability value, which is going to tell us what is the probability that the difference between two groups is due to chance or not. The best way to understand how to perform the t-test is with an example. In this example, we're going to compare the height of 10 of my co-workers versus the height of 10 players of the legendary Dream Team of basketball who competed in the Barcelona Olympic Games of 1992. I tabulated the heights of the players in this Excel spreadsheet and converted it to inches to make the calculations easy. For example, Magic Johnson is 6 feet 9 inches tall, so that's equal to 81 inches, while Michael Jordan, by the way, the best player ever, and I saw him playing back in 1997, and he was amazing. Anyway, Michael Jordan is 6 feet 6 inches tall, and that's equal to 78 inches, and so on. Excel has a formula to perform the t-test, which means finding the p-value. So, the formula goes like this: type equal t-test, open parentheses, and now we need to select the data for array 1, which is our first set of data, in this case, the height of my coworkers, comma, and now we need to select the data for array 2, which is the height of the players of the Dream Team, comma. Then you have the option to pick the number 1 for the one-tail distribution, or 2 for a two-tail distribution. We're going to type 2 since we don't know in which direction the variation is going to go. Well, actually, we know in this case, since I can guarantee you that the Dream Team is taller than my coworkers, but in most studies, you don't know in which direction the variation is going to go. So for this example, we're going to type 2. Then you need to type 1 if it's a pair sample, 2 if it's a 2 sample with equal variance, or 3 if it's a 2 sample with unequal variance. In most cases, when you are comparing two populations, the assumption is that both populations follow a normal distribution with similar variance, so type 2, unless you have performed a previous study and you know that the populations have different variances. Close the parentheses, click enter, and voila! Excel is going to give us a very small p-value of 0.000079, which is the p-value that we were looking for.
What does this p-value mean, Juan-Juan?
Oh, good question, Mimi. If the p-value is larger than 0.05 or 5%, we need to accept the null hypothesis. Well, the proper Six Sigma term is that we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Anyhow, remember that the null hypothesis is always the boring hypothesis where nothing happens. And in this case, the null hypothesis is that both populations are equal. But if the p-value is smaller than 0.05 or 5%, we need to reject the null hypothesis, which means there is a statistical difference between samples. In conclusion, the t-test is demonstrating that there is a statistical difference between the height of my coworkers and the height of the players of the legendary 1992 Dream Team. Let's see another example using Minitab. But first, let's take a break. In this example, we are going to be using Minitab 21. If you are using a different version, your screen may look a little different. For this example, we are going to compare the height of 10 players of the Dream Team versus 10 players of the 2023-2024 Chicago Bulls team. And by the way, these 10 players alone have a combined salary of more than $150 million per year, and they cannot win a championship. Anyhow, I have tabulated the heights in inches for both teams. So, to perform the test, or to find the p-value, we go to Stat, Basic Statistics, and select 2 sample t. In this drop-down box, select each sample is in its own column. For sample 1, select the height of the Dream Team, and for sample 2, select the Bulls. If you click Options, you can verify that we are using a confidence level of 95%. The hypothesized difference of 0 means that the null hypothesis is that there is no difference between the means of the samples, and the alternative hypothesis is that there is a difference between them. Same as in the previous example, we're going to assume that the samples have equal variances. Click OK, click OK again, and voila! Minitab gives us the results in 4 tables. Let's analyze them one by one. The first table is titled Method, and it explains that mu1 is the population mean of the Dream Team, and mu2 is the population mean of the Chicago Bulls. So the method is to compare the difference between mu1 and mu2. We also consider equal variances. The second table is titled Descriptive Statistics, and here we can see the name of our samples, Dream Team and Bulls, how many players we sample, 10 of each team, the standard deviation of each sample, and the standard error of the mean, SE mean, which estimates the variability between sample means that you will obtain if you took repeated samples from the same population. The third table is titled Estimation for Difference. Here we can see that the difference of standard deviations between the samples is only 1.1 inches. the pool standard deviation, which is the average spread of all data points, and the 95% confidence interval for the difference. This number means that 95% of the players will be shorter by 1.56 inches or 3.76 inches taller than the pool standard deviation. And the most important is the fourth table titled test. Actually, you can directly go to this table if you just want to see the result. Here, we can see the t-value of 0.87, which is calculated using this formula. The degrees of freedom, which are calculated adding the number of samples of the two groups minus 2, or in this case, 10 plus 10 minus 2. And finally, the p-value of 0.397, which is larger than 0.05 or 5%.
Juan-Juan, I know what that means. The p-value is larger than 0.05 or 5%, which means that there is not a statistical difference between the height of the players of the 1992 Dream Team and the height of the players of the Chicago Bulls.
Exactly, Mimi. The p-value is telling us that there is no statistical difference between the height of the players, but that doesn't explain why the Bulls cannot win a championship. Anyhow, this is the end of the t-test. Now, let's go to the final thoughts. And these are my final thoughts. The t-test is a very useful tool to compare two samples or two populations and to determine if such samples are statistically similar or different. But be careful. Remember that this test only will tell you about the similarities of the groups, but it will not tell you if one group is better than the other. So use this tool wisely. Well, that's it for today. See you next time. And until then, take care of yourself and each other.
Juan-Juan, before we leave, can we play a game?
Oh, sí.
I know some Mexican dishes myself. Can we name some of these dishes from A to Z?
Of course, of course. This sounds like a fun game. Let me start. A is for aguas frescas.
B is for burritos and barbacoa.
C is for carnitas and caldo de pollo.
D is for dulce de leche.
E is for enchiladas.
F is for fajitas.
G is for gorditas and guacamole.
H is for huevos rancheros.
I is for ice cream.
Juan-Juan, I win.
Ugh.